My last memory of Israel is not the way that Israel is today.
I don't even know what that looks like, moving your entire life across the world.
When I came here, there was like, oh, do you ride camels to school?
Do you think there was any malice or hatred towards you?
I grew up in a skyscraper. I ate my lunch the first 3 days in the bathroom. You do not understand how vast the United States is until you go someplace else. I was so scared.
Welcome back to the How Was Your Trip podcast, where we unravel the world one interview at a time. Today's episode is a really special one as we dive into Avery Miller's story moving from Tel Aviv, Israel to Huntsville, Alabama, and all the cultural differences and experiences she's had over the last 10 years. One thing I would really like to note on today's episode specifically is that this is one person's experience and one person's opinions. Avery doesn't represent Israel as a whole. She doesn't represent the Jewish people as a whole. She represents herself and what she's experienced. And we dive into that some in today's episode, but I felt like that was really important to note. Something very special about Avery's and my friendship is that we view the world and life so differently. We basically agree on nothing, and yet we have so much love and respect for each other. And we've been friends for 9 years now, and I think that it's just so beautiful that we can have such a strong friendship with so many different views on life. And so I hope you can see that in today's episode. I hope you can take something from that and love on someone that you may or may not agree with on politics, religion, life, the world, whatever it might be. But let's get into today's episode. Avery Miller.
Sarah Warmers.
Welcome to the How Was Your Trip podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you on. So at 15 years old, you moved to America.
I did.
I
moved back to America.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us your story from the beginning. Just who are you? How did you get here?
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So my mom's Israeli. My dad's American. I was born in Los Angeles, California. My mom moved here after the Second Gulf War in 92. Found my dad. They, got together, got married 3 months after they met, and they had me 8 years into their marriage. Wow. I'm firstborn, born in Los Angeles. We moved to Israel a little bit after 9/11 in 2001.
Wow.
And my mom basically just decided that that was the trigger to move us back to Israel and raised me there. I had a great childhood. We were in a very family-oriented neighborhood and environment right outside of Tel Aviv. I was there until I was 15, so my entire life, basically. And we moved back here right before I was supposed to be drafted. So,
wait, I thought you get drafted
at 18, but you get placements in the military at 16.
Oh, wow.
So, you get a warrant to call you and to start the testing and stuff at 16. It's called basically a first appointment. That's where they start the categorizing you.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why you guys moved back?
I think it's a big part of it. I think they wanted to bring me back to the States before I had to go through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily the reason, but it was a big part of the reason. I don't think they wanted me to have to do.
So talk me through that conversation. Were you a part of the decision to come back to America, or did they sit you down and say, hey, Abe's, this is what we're doing?
Yeah, I have a memory of me being 14, maybe I was 13, a year to 2 years before. And they were like, hey, just so you know, this is happening and it's in the process. We're going to eventually move back to the States. And then 2 years go by and it was like, oh, hey, we bought our plane ticket.
So the first conversation, how did you respond?
I don't have a clear memory of it. But I was very into, I was the American in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, here I'm known as the foreigner. I'm the Israeli.
Uh-huh.
There I was the American because my dad's American and my name's Avery.
Right.
There's nobody named Avery in the States. In Israel.
So you felt like a foreigner even in Israel?
I wouldn't say I felt like a foreigner, but being American was definitely a part of my identity.
Okay.
Even though I didn't grow up here, I was the one that helped my friends with their English homework because I was a native English speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And if they wanted stuff from like the Disney Channel, my grandmother would ship it over to us and stuff like that. I was like the token American friend because my dad was American. So to them, I was from the States, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then the second conversation that was kind of like, we bought our plane tickets, we're moving. Do you remember that one?
I do. I remember it was probably a week after my dad got back from the States.
Okay.
I didn't know why he went. I thought it was a business trip, but he bought us a house.
So he didn't tell you before before he
may
left?
have. I don't think he announced it. Like, it wasn't a serious announcement. It was like, oh, my dad's going to the States again, like whatever work trip. Even in Israel, he worked in the States remotely. But he just like, I thought he went on a business trip, and then it was like, oh, well, we bought our house, we closed on a house, and July 14th, here we come. It was like that. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So he traveled over here a lot for work.
Yes.
Did you, when you moved at 2 years old to 15 years old, did you ever come back to the States at all?
Once.
Okay.
I was here for a bat mitzvah trip. We went to Disney World, and it was so fun.
So in Florida?
Yes.
Okay. So you had only seen California, and that was a baby, and then Florida when you were a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved to the U.S. How did you get here? Like, I don't even know what that looks like, moving your entire life across the world.
So after he closed on the house and we had this conversation, like, we have a date, we had a shipping container. So you like pack your whole life into a shipping container that gets shipped like 3 weeks before you fly.
Okay. And it goes on like a ship?
I imagine. I actually don't.
Plane?
I imagine it went on a ship, which is why it takes 3 weeks to get here. And we had to find a place for our cats to live because we had 6 cats in Israel.
Oh my
and
gosh.
we had to like give our fish away and all that jazz. And then we flew from Israel to JFK. So that's like an 12 hour flight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we flew from JFK to Nashville. And then we drove from Nashville to here. I vividly remember that entire journey.
To Huntsville, Alabama. So for anyone who doesn't already know about Tel Aviv, Israel, and Huntsville, Alabama, maybe just give us a little bit of context of both and the polarizing differences of what you were walking into.
Okay.
Not just from the American perspective, but just more of like the city, suburbia, the differences in that.
Okay, so you remember in the Hannah Montana movie where she like looks out the window and she arrives at Tennessee and she's just like, what is happening? Like, what am I looking at? It's that. Like, that is a very accurate representation of what it was like, at least for me coming. I grew up in a skyscraper.
Right.
Like, a house, like if you live in a regular residential home in Israel, you're filthy rich. Like, so I grew up in a skyscraper. I came here. Nashville's a bit even more city-like than Huntsville is.
Right.
So I came here and I was like, oh, okay, manageable. And like as soon as we get into like Brentwood, you're just like, what? Where am I at? This is a farm. Like, where am I at? So yeah, in Tel Aviv, it's all skyscrapers. The roads also, for anybody that doesn't know, Israel is densely populated, which is why they build up, because there's no room for for every human in Israel to have a residential house. There's no room.
Right.
So they build up. Israel's the size of Rhode Island, and there's twice as many people as in the entire state of Alabama. So it's about a quarter of the size of Alabama, I would say.
Yeah.
With twice as many people.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just it's a totally different, like the skyline is just different. And you don't have, you have the beach, so it's like a city right on the Mediterranean Sea. And here, for me, when I first came here and I found out that the ocean is 6.5 hours away, it's insane to me because you could basically go across Europe in that amount of time. Yeah. It's you do not understand how vast the United States is until you go someplace else and you just take a car ride, go 4 hours away, and you pass 3 countries. It's just
Right. Yeah. My European friends, they say stuff like that all the time. Like it blows their mind that I drive 2 hours on like a normal weekend to just go across the state to see my parents.
Yeah,
you know?
that's crazy. It's like the 45-minute commute to work that people have here on the regular basis is like a full road trip for somebody in Israel.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like day 1 of being here. Give me like your first 6 months, because you experienced sort of high school, and I know that the school system was different in Israel. So were you in high school there, and like when did you come in here?
So I graduated middle school because that goes all the way to 9th grade in Israel.
Right.
And then I came and started high school in 10th grade here.
So first 6 months of American high school.
Yeah, it was rough.
Talk me through that.
It was very rough. I was so scared. I was so nervous. My first issue, I think, that I stumbled upon coming into high school here is that the books were in English. That was not a conscience. Like I didn't cue into that I would have to read English, and that's the only thing I would need to read. I could read English. I've done it before. I've been speaking English since I was like 7. But everything was translated. So it took me time and a half to read this sentence in English and then translate it into Hebrew because I think in Hebrew. It just took a lot of relearning of basically everything.
Because you came here and started 10th grade.
Yes.
Right. So you skipped that first year of high school, of when all the middle schools mesh together. They all make friends freshman year. And so you're coming into a more established group of individuals who have their flow, have their, group of friends.
Absolutely.
And then you're feeling behind in school. You don't know anyone.
It was an absolutely petrifying experience. I remember my first day, it was 5th period, which is the period we used to take lunch. And Coach Anenye was my 5th period teacher, and he forced me to stand up in front of the class and introduce myself. Oh, no. And it wasn't just me. He made everybody do it. Oh. But for me, it was just like, this is what y'all do in the States. You just put people on the spot like this. I was just cringing. I'm a very bubbly individual, as you know. I'm very extroverted, but I was not that first 6 months. So yeah, he forced me to like make friends. I made friends with this one girl. We sat together at lunch. But that wasn't until the Friday of that week. Like it took like 3 or 4 days. I don't think you even know this. I ate my lunch the first 3 days in the bathroom by the cafeteria.
Avery, that makes me so sad.
Yeah, dude, I was so petrified.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just sat in the bathroom stall and just like hung out for the first 3 days. Yeah.
We went to a mid-size high school. So, I mean, around here it is a large school, but I'm aware that there are larger high schools. So we had about 450 students in our class and about 2,000 people in our high school. So compared to what school you went to, was that big, small?
Oh, it was massive. My entire town was probably 40,000 people. Wow. So just in our school system, I think we had 40,000 students.
So how did you finally have lunch with someone? Like, how did you finally...
Coach Anenye, he made us pick somebody to sit with at lunch for that like semester or whatever. And I met this girl, her name's Myra, and we sat and she introduced me to all of her friends. And then the semester ended. And by the time the first semester ended, I had begged my parents to send me back to Israel.
Wow.
And I spent Christmas break there.
Of 10th grade.
Okay. I went to Israel for a full month, and that really like refreshed me, and it gave me a lot of hindsight that I didn't have. And I was like, you know what? Let me just give this a shot. Like, I was not dancing. I was not willing to make friends. I was my own issue. I was getting in my own way.
Yeah.
And I went there for a month, and then I came back here, and I had an entirely different perspective. I didn't feel like it was something that was being done to me. I felt like I can actually choose to just try and have a good experience. And I think we met like couple weeks right after. And from the moment that I met you and I was accepted into our high school friend group, I think my entire high school experience shifted.
It's just so crazy to even hear that of you, because my first my first thoughts about you were, wow, this girl is really bold and really bubbly and very willing to put herself out there, because we were a very tight-knit friend group at that point. And so at first I was like, who is this girl that's just like coming into our friend group?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting hearing it from you, because, that's just an Israeli attitude, like the bluntness and the being abrasive.
Yeah.
It's just you don't have time to worry about what people think about you. There's bigger issues at hand. So
yeah, this is kind of a different question that I didn't plan on asking. But so did 9/11 cause you to move?
My mom, I think it triggered my mom too. Yeah, I think that's like a direct result of it happening.
But with bombings are pretty normal in Israel.
Right, and she thought that wasn't going to happen here.
Okay, so she was like, if this is going to happen in America, why am I not just back home?
Exactly.
Okay.
It was like, well, it's happening here, so, like, wouldn't I rather raise my kid around my family? And that's what, like, yeah.
How common was that of an experience for you in Israel?
Pretty common. How kids in our America have active shooter drills. We had bomb drills. Wow. And this is where the safe room is. And there's a building cannot be constructed up to code without a bomb shelter in Israel. So, like, the skyscrapers are cement, and they're meant to sustain earthquakes and bombings. That's the engineering, industrial engineering of the buildings in Israel, because it's extremely common. And I have a vague memory of being in Tel Aviv when I was like 8 and a bus exploded. Like,
wow. Oh my goodness.
Suicide bombers are just, it's very common, which is a big part of why the sense in Israel is very communal and warm, is because these people around you are all you got. And the bad things that happen in Israel happen very often. So there's a need to be close and to feel communal warmth very, very often. These people are the only ones that know how I feel. Right. So there's a very big emphasis on community and on not judging each other and be who you are, a lot more so than I think there is here. I think you're able to find that, but you're only able to find that when you search for it. I think you have that in your church group. Like, I think you have that in your church community, but you had to go and insert yourself into there. It's not just a given with, like, your neighbor. Right. In Israel, hitchhiking is very common because people are willing to lend a hand when I think hitchhiking in the States is straight up dangerous. It's not dangerous in Israel. It's just a part of the culture, because that's just what you do. This person doesn't have a car. They're stranded on the side of the road. You pick them up and you take them somewhere. I couldn't imagine ever doing that.
Well, that's so interesting that you say that, because you speak to two different things there. You speak to all of our buildings have to be made of cement because of all the bombs that we're going to experience. But also, I feel safe enough to get in this random person's car and hitchhike.
Well, I think that's why. I think we have the problem, like, we're focusing on bigger problems, that the civilian level problems are just not existent. I think that that's too big of a generalization. I'm sure that there's people that get robbed, and I think that exists. It just happens on a much lower scale because they have bigger things to worry about. Again, it's mandatory military service in Israel. So basically 99% of the people you interact with are military trained, and they have clearances, and they're active members of society, which doesn't exist in most countries. Right. I mean, I remember being 12, walking around in Tel Aviv like at 3 a.m.
That's crazy.
Just because I don't have a curfew. Yeah. It's at the time wasn't dangerous. My parents were not worried about me like being out with my friends. 12, 13, 14-year-old. Maybe they were, but I was allowed to be out.
Right. Is that
in the
your
street.
parents or is that most parents
Right.
in Israel?
Well, me and my friends, because my
Right.
friends were with me.
True.
So
And people don't really have guns there, right?
no. So civilians, you have to get, I would say it's as difficult as getting a gun in like California or New York.
Okay.
You have to go through training. You have to apply for it through the government. You have to pass a bunch of tests. Like, you have to have, I think the only ones that can like just get it because they applied are very, very high level military officials. The regulations have decreased as the need for them increased. But when I was a kid, the only people that had weapons were active military members that were walking around in the street.
Right. Wow. Okay, switching to a little bit lighter of a topic.
Yeah.
So I remember when we were younger, I would reference things and you'd be like, Sarah, I didn't grow up here. Like,
that still happens.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
When you first moved here, what were some of the biggest like cultural, just funny things that you were like, these stupid Americans, why are they doing this?
I mean, drive-throughs was a big one. The phenomenon of not having to exit your vehicle to get something like medicine, food, clothing donations, photos pickup at Walgreens. Like, it's just like everything is so accessible here.
Yes.
And it's due to the space, right? Like, in New York, you can't have a drive-through. Like, that's not a thing that you can have. But the drive-throughs were a big deal. I remember just thinking the amount of pregnant women here was just like not enough, not as much as I'm used to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like
everyone's pregnant in Israel.
Everybody's pregnant in Israel. It has a big thing to do with the subsidized healthcare that they have there. It's not expensive to have a baby in Israel. The government pays for it. So yeah, I remember thinking that. I mean, people in Alabama are really, really big. They're massive. We got some big men and women here.
Do you feel like the lifestyle in Israel in general is healthier?
Yes, you walk everywhere. It's kind of like European. You know how in Europe they walk everywhere? It's just like, that's what you do. It's kind of like that. I think that it's just a given with how small I lived across the street from my family members. Like all I need to do is walk across the street and I'm there, and that's.
But now you get in your car to like
drive 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah, right.
If I drove 10 minutes down the road in Israel, I'd be in a different city.
Right. That's crazy. What about the food? Do you think it's healthier?
There, oh yeah, everything is fresh. Everything is grown there. You have to have kosher meat. So the cows are raised and slaughtered differently than they are here. There's no like mass production. If you go to the grocery store and they're out of this thing, they're just out. There's no outrage about like, where's my meat?
Right.
Like, that's a very American thing, like that. The need-based demand, like I need my cheeseburger now. So yeah, that doesn't exist. We eat at different times. Breakfast is very light there. And then lunch is like medium size, and then dinner is very heavy.
Okay.
So we eat like breakfast maybe at like 10.
Oh wow.
And you eat lunch at like 1:32, and dinner is like 8 p.m. So the restaurants are open later than they are here. Like the concept of 5 o'clock dinner, unheard of in Israel.
What's like a normal work day there? You know how it's like 9 to 5 here. What's like a normal work day?
It's gonna be 7:30 to 1:30.
Okay.
And then you have a siesta hour, so you have an hour break during the day. All the stores close.
Wow.
Like for an hour to an hour and a half in the afternoon.
Wow.
And then you come back and you're open until 6 or 7. This is like no store is open all day there.
Let's take some notes, America. Let's get on the siesta.
Yeah, and on Tuesdays they're only open half a day.
Wow.
I think a big part of the breaks in the middle of the day is also because Sunday is a regular day in Israel.
No weekend.
No, we only have Saturday as a weekend.
Right.
I went to school on Sundays.
Oh,
we
wow.
We had a 6-week school week.
6 day.
6 day school week. So Sunday, Monday, my week started on Sunday.
Wow.
And we only had one weekend evening. It was Friday evening, and one weekend day, which was Saturday. So yeah, if you had plans for the weekend,
Uh-huh.
it was Saturday
But
only.
everything is closed on Saturdays, right?
Yes, and
Like everything.
everything is closed on. The beach is open. Like you could go to the beach. There's very few like grocery stores. Like it's the way things are in the States, like on Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
You know how everything is closed except like this one gas station.
Yeah.
It's like parallel to that.
But every single Saturday.
Every
Wow.
Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of people being on vacation there and traveling and not really thinking that through ahead of time.
Absolutely.
And then having no food. Like when you're on vacation, it's not like you have a kitchen you can go get food from. Like
Yeah. You have to go to like a Christian owned or a Muslim owned like store in order for it to be open on Saturday.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So when you moved here, I'm sure you had a bunch of preconceived notions of what America was going to look or be like, a lot of preconceived notions about what Americans would be like. What were some of those that did end up being true? And what were some of those that were kind of myth busted once you got here?
My only reference to what people were going to be like here were Disney show movies and TV shows.
Wow.
So like nobody broke out in song in the cafeteria. And you're laughing, Sarah, but I'm so dead. Like this was really, I thought that all the boys in our grade were going to be smoking hot.
Oh,
like all these Americans that looked just like Justin Bieber and Zac Efron. Like I thought that there were going to be Sharpay Evanses. And I really, really, truly believed that our high school was going to be that. And then I walk into Grissom High School and I'm just like, what is this place? Like,
how disappointing.
So
wow.
That was mainly my preconceived, like Ned's Declassified Guide and all these like Nickelodeon shows. I really truly believe that is American humor.
I mean, how else would you know? It's not like social media was a big thing. It's not like we had TikTok that gave you like a true insight of people's regular everyday lives. You really only had these fictitious shows to build your life on.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, but I came here and the first thing I remember seeing was my backyard. And you know the backyard of my parents' house, it's massive. I literally was like, this is really how people live. Like I did not realize that a backyard could be that big.
There's grass.
There's green grass and there's a shed and I have a bedroom and my sister has a bedroom and we have 2 extra bedrooms and my mind was just blown like at the size. And now being here for 10 years, I could tell you my house is not very big. Like my house is a very average, it's 2,500 square foot. Like it's very average. It's a 2-car garage with a big backyard, but not the biggest I've seen. And
but coming from a skyscraper where a cajillion people live.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's
I had
huge.
a balcony.
Right.
Like,
right. That's your backyard.
Yeah, that was my backyard.
Okay. I know that we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, the textbooks and the meeting friends. Do you think there were any other really hard challenges during your first couple years here?
Yeah, I as you can vouch for this, there's not many Jewish people here. I faced a lot of ignorance when I came here. There was like, oh, do you ride camels to school? And it's like, oh, do you speak Muslim, which is not a language? And it was just like, oh, like, why do you look like this? And what do you believe in? And it was a lot of ignorance. I would say I did not experience that with you. I think it's because you were extremely educated in your faith at the time. And I think you knew where I came from because Jesus came from Israel. And I didn't experience that with most people. I think that's why me and you drew to each other. I never had an unintelligent discussion with you. And I experienced that on a daily basis with our peers.
I do think because I had been friends with people of different faiths, of different nationalities, of different ethnicities from a young age, I do think that helped me. Obviously, I'm still ignorant in a lot of ways, and I still, you know, we're always learning, we're always growing. But any questions I asked really came out of care and curiosity, not just
bias.
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
Right. Was most of the negativity that you faced just out of ignorance, or do you think there was any malice or hatred towards you?
No, there's no malice or hatred. It totally came from a place of ignorance. I don't think people understood how offensive they were being. The only moment of malice that or evil came from an adult.
Wow.
The kids, like our peers, they were not mean at all. But we had a teacher, my 10th grade English teacher, Miss Masudi. I know you know about this. Here. I know you know about this. She accused me of plagiarizing her final paper.
Wow.
And she was Muslim, and she knew I was Jewish, and she would always make slight, snarky comments throughout the year. It didn't hit me in the face until she accused me of plagiarizing, and she wanted me to fail 10th grade grade English, and I pushed back. It went all the way up to the superintendent. Yeah, it was bad.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That was evil. Like, that was her just picking on a kid.
Do you think that you were able to, I know our Jewish community here is not huge, but do you think that you had ease kind of entering that space because you are both Israeli and Jewish, whereas a lot of the people in that community here in Alabama are American Jewish, which I know that there's some Western differences.
Absolutely.
And so talk me through that. Like, talk me through entering that community. And did it help you? Did it hurt you? Was it easy, hard?
Well, I entered that community and I exited pretty quickly. I was involved in it for probably like a year to a year and a half. I just hate the attention that it got me. Because I was either the only one or one of the very few Jews that were in the synagogue that were from Israel, it drew a lot of attention to me. And I don't like being watched. I don't like people like paying active attention to me. And as a kid, it's also very difficult. My parents did not join me when I went to Alex Bar Mitzvah. I was me with their family. Right. So it's not like I had my parents to back me up here and like save me from the attention. That did not happen. I had to just stick it out. I think that's what pushed me away from it. Yeah. Because I'm not the most interesting person on planet Earth. Like, you do not need to sit here and interrogate me about my life. Not this, not what we're doing right now.
I'm like, you're on a podcast.
Yeah, right. No, I'm saying, like, as a 40-year-old woman and me as a 16-year-old, like, me getting interviewed to be your son's future wife in like 10 years from now is just like not it. Yeah. I just didn't enjoy that type of attention. And I had to go through it again when I went to college.
Talk me through that.
Well, Mississippi State, for anybody that knows, is in a tiny, tiny town called Starkville, Mississippi. Not many Jews there either. Yeah. Closest synagogue was in a city called Columbus, Mississippi, which is like 2 cities away from Starkville. And me and my professor's assistant, Molly, she like heard that I was Jewish. How? Don't know. But she found out. And she was like, hey, I go to the synagogue, like, if you want to come. And I went, and it was the same story. Like, oh, my God, she's Israeli. Oh, my God. Like, we have an Israelite in Mississippi. It was like, which, again, I love.
She has come.
Yeah, it's just like, because it made me feel like I was the representative of the entire Israeli community, and that's a lot of weight to carry. Yeah, you have to like walk on eggshells. You can't. I felt like I couldn't have opinions because they would say, oh, okay, well, if she thinks like that, all Israelis think like that, and that's the way that they are. And it was just a lot of weight for a 17-year-old to carry.
I know that when I travel as an American, I very much have it in my mind, like, I am representing America. Do you feel that pressure on a regular basis?
Not anymore, because I think that at this point, with my y'all and my accent, that where it came to, I think that it has dwindled down. I also haven't been to Israel in 10 years. So my last memory of Israel is not the way that Israel is today. And I'm very conscious of that. I still watch Israeli TV shows. I still read the news. I still get all the notifications to my phone. But there's like an entire wave of culture that I don't know. So I think that I've merged into an American. Like, if you ask me where I'm from, I'm going to be like, I'm from Huntsville.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, unless it comes up.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I was raised in Israel. I was just talking to one of my coworkers about this. They had no idea I was Jewish from Israel.
Wow.
Because I took off for Hanukkah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, why are you taking off for Hanukkah? I'm like, dude, I'm Jewish. I'm from Israel. And he had no idea. I've been working with them for like 8 months.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten a sideline seat to a lot of your life, which I'm so honored for. And I've seen phases of your life where you have really dug deep into your Jewish faith and practices, and then some seasons of your life where you haven't. And now that you're a mom of a sweet baby, I do think you're starting to really think, as most parents do, how do I want to represent what a person should do? What are my morals? What are my beliefs? What do I stand on? And so your sweet boyfriend is not Israeli. He's not Jewish. How do you guys balance that, and what parts of your upbringing in Israel do you think that you are bringing to the table, and what are you kind of being like, I don't think I want to raise my child with this?
It's a great question. I think that I view my Judaism more as my ethnicity rather than my religion.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier to explain to somebody why I do what I do. It's just like, well, this is who I am, right? I have Jewish blood in me. That's why I do it. Rather than I chose to do this or I chose to do that. I think it really gives a better explanation to how I feel I am Jewish in my life. Like, I have tattoos, right? That means that I can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
Did you get all of those in America?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. I got my first one like 4 months after I came here as a 15-year-old.
Right.
Yay, Dad. But I think that I treat my Judaism very similarly to how he treats his morals. Like there's some things that he just isn't going to budge on, and there's some things that I'm not going to budge on. And we have a lot of respect for one another. And typically the things that are important to me that goes this way are not that big of a deal for him. So it's just like, okay, take the back seat. Same with him. If he wants this to get done, I usually don't feel strongly enough to be the opposite. So I think we balance each other out pretty well. And I think that I just asked him today, actually, I was like, how do you feel if Rivers turns 6 and she's like, hey, I want to go to church with Sarah and Beckham? And he told me, he was like, I'm not going to have anything to say. She wants to go to church. She wants to go to church.
Yeah.
So I asked him today, I was like, how would you feel if Rivers and Beckham are going to grow up side by side, and she's going to know that Sarah and Worm are heavily involved in the church, and that's going to be part of their weekly routine. How would you feel if Rivers grew up and she's just like, hey, I want to go to church today with Auntie Sarah? And he was like, cool.
How would you feel?
Yeah, go ahead. I used to go to church with you all the time. I think it's a great experience. I think it would be a weird experience for somebody that's shaky in their faith, right?
Yeah.
If you were a Jew and you didn't know what you believed and you decided to go to church, and then all of a sudden your insides are just like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I think that is an overwhelming experience. Yeah.
Well, and I experienced that a lot with some of our friends that are of different faiths, even Judaism. Growing up, you grew up in Israel. You grew up in the Promised Land, the Holy Land. You were exposed to Judaism every single day from all sides, whereas people here that might not be as involved in their faith, I do think that church scared them more to even just come and see it or experience it because of exactly what you're saying of, would it cause confusion? Would they still stand for what they believed? Would they even know how to stand for what they believed because they weren't as exposed? So I think that you were able to experience a different religion and even a different culture and still stand in what you believed because of your upbringing.
Right. Yeah. And it's you have to know how you maneuver having an atheist father in the most religious country in the world. So I think that I was already raised with such a pull in each direction, just in the environment that I was in, and then in my nuclear environment that I was in with my family. So we celebrated all holidays. We did not go to synagogue every Friday. I did not keep the Sabbath. I would say 70% of Israelis like don't use electricity on Saturday.
Wow.
And they have 24-hour makeup because you can't do work on the Sabbath. But yeah, I think I was pretty settled in what I believed before I came here, which worked in my favor because I was able to experience a lot of things that people are weary of.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to go to church and leave feeling good, right?
Right.
It's very empowering, even if you have something to take away from each Sunday service, even if you don't agree, believe, whatever the verb you want to use, you walk away feeling great.
Absolutely.
You're ready to conquer the day.
Yeah.
So
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play a little this or that.
Okay.
Israel versus America edition.
Okay.
So we'll start easy. Food.
Israel.
Shopping.
America, because everything is imported. In Israel, everything's mega expensive.
Beach of Tel Aviv or mountains of Alabama.
Beach.
Yeah. Hebrew or English?
That's a tough one. English.
That surprises me.
Yeah, because I've recently discovered that I sound like I'm fighting every time I'm speaking in Hebrew.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
I heard a YouTube video and I was like, it was in Arabic, and I was like, damn, they just sound like they're fighting, and they weren't. In their sister languages, and Damien confirmed that every time I speak to my mom, it sounds like we're shouting over one another.
I was about to say, I do think sometimes your conversations with your mom can sound aggressive,
They're
but I
not.
don't know if that's just because it's your mom.
Oh, no.
Or
We're
if,
literally just like, oh, hey, how's your day going? Oh, great. This is what I did today. And then Damien's like, why are you yelling at her? I'm like, I'm not.
Wow.
I'm asking how she's doing.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So English. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say because English is, you can't go to Switzerland and find somebody that speaks Hebrew, right?
Right.
It's a lot more practical to speak English than Hebrew.
Do you remember when I was in Morocco?
Yes, I do.
So I was in Morocco trying to talk to this taxi driver, and Aves isn't the best in Arabic, but she speaks. Yeah, she speaks enough to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called her, and I'm having her talk Arabic to my taxi driver, and she was able to get me where I needed to go.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I vividly remember that. Yes, it was great. Google Translate would have done the same, but
I think that I had to call you because I was using Google Translate that entire trip.
It just didn't work.
I think it wasn't working because I needed to call someone.
That's so
And
funny.
I had been traveling for 4 months at that point.
Yeah.
Using Google Translate. So I think it just wasn't working.
That's funny.
I think I didn't have service or something.
My personal Google Translate.
Right.
That's funny.
Okay. 2 more questions. What, for someone that is moving across the world, whether it's on their own volition and decision, or if they are in a situation like you were, where you didn't really have much of a say, but you were still going to have to move across the world to a new country and a new culture, what advice would you give them?
I wrote this down because this was important for me to get right. So I wrote, be adaptable, embrace the change. Your brain is, in fact, your biggest enemy. Trust your gut. And I ended it with, it will be okay. This too shall pass.
I love that.
Because I really, really, really feel like you are your own enemy when you're not embracing what's to come. Each country is going to have its own pros and cons to it, and you're never going to learn unless you accept what's coming your way. You will come out the other side fine.
Thanks for sharing. That's so beautiful. All right, final question that I ask all of my guests. Where to next for Avery Miller?
I would love to go to the northwestern United States. Yes. Because that's the only part of the U.S. that I haven't visited ever. And I would love to go and take Rivers and Damien to see it because that's just geographically speaking, it's just so different.
It is.
And like Red Rocks and Washington State and Montana. And just all of these beautiful, beautiful states that I would love to visit because it's so new and different to me.
Let's make it happen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Aves, for coming on the
Thanks,
podcast.
Sarah.
I love you so much.
I love you.
All right, guys, what did you think? I really enjoyed having my conversation with Avery and really diving into her story of her move to America and all the experiences, hardships, fun times that went along with that. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please let me know in the comments below or by emailing me at howisyourtrippodcast@gmail.com. And please like, comment, subscribe, all the podcast things so that I can keep doing this. I really appreciate you guys listening every week, and I'll see you guys back in 2 weeks.